The PEP Radio Newsroom, this is the news blast for this hour. Pennsylvania legislators are seeking to codify marriage equality. The Philadelphia Gay News is reporting former Kentucky County Clerk Kim Davis, who gained national attention over her refusal to issue marriage licenses to LGBTQ plus couples, citing religious beliefs, has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to revisit the Obergefell v. Hodges decision, which established marriage equality across the United States in 2015. If Obergefell is overturned, who is immediately impacted? 32 states have trigger laws through the use of constitutional or legislative bans that would take effect if marriage equality is overturned. And at least 9 states have introduced new legislation that would block new marriage licenses for LGBTQ plus couples if the Supreme Court ruling changes. Pennsylvania's previous Defense of Marriage Act prohibited same-sex marriage and refused to recognize same-sex marriages performed in other states. But a federal judge struck down the state's ban on marriage equality in 2014 in the Whitewood v. Wolf decision, making the state the 19th to permit marriage equality. While the ruling legalized same-sex marriage in the state, it was not codified by statute. This means the decision could be appealed and overturned at any time without the protection of Obergefell v. Hodges. Title 23, the state statute on domestic relations, still defines marriage as a civil contract by which one man and one woman take each other for husband and wife. Advocates are now taking legislative action to remove that language and ensure marriage equality protections are explicit under state law. As legislators, we are entrusted to retain laws that reflect and represent the will and values of our constituents, said State Senator Carolyn Kenyatta, who introduced Senate Bill 434, the Marriage Equality Act, in a memo to all Senate members. It is a disservice to all Pennsylvanians in loving same-sex marriages to continue to allow this obsolete section of law to exist. A press release issued about the bill claims it would eliminate discriminatory language that exists in current Pennsylvania law and affirm marriage equality should federal protections be reversed. This Supreme Court has proven that we cannot rely on the courts to fix the flaws in our laws, and we need to take legislative action that protects and defends our basic rights and freedoms, Kenyatta noted in the press release. As we see new efforts to overturn marriage equality for same-sex couples through the court system, our legislation is needed now more than ever to protect marriage rights and demonstrate that Pennsylvania is a welcoming and caring home for all. Republicans, which have a 28-22 majority in the state Senate, are not likely to let the measure pass. We passed this legislation in the House last session with bipartisan support, but the state Senate never considered it for a vote, said State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, the state's first openly LGBTQ plus person of color to serve in the General Assembly, alluding to the landslide 2024 victory for the House with 133 supporters. The bill died in committee. We must continue this work to protect all marriages across Pennsylvania, said Kenyatta, who introduced a companion bill in the state's House of Representatives to accompany the Senate bill proposed by Kenyatta. Marriage equality is the law of the land, and Pennsylvania should clean up our statutes to match that, he said. The current review of Obergefell v. Hodges makes it clear that the freedom to marry is under attack. This is something I've warned about, as have other advocates and members of the LGBTQ plus community. The Supreme Court could decide not to reconsider marriage equality or might not have enough votes to reverse its original decision. Marriage equality is currently protected at the federal level under substantive due process rights, which means that the Constitution affirms those rights, even though they're not explicitly stated within the Constitution. In his written concurrence in the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which previously protected abortion rights, Justice Clarence Thomas noted that the Supreme Court should reconsider all of this court's substantive due process precedents, explicitly including the right to use contraception, the right to same-sex intimacy without criminalization, and the now threatened right to marriage equality. In his comments, he called these kinds of rights demonstrably erroneous. He does realize that this would include the Loving v. Virginia ruling, which allowed him to marry his own wife, Ginny Thomas. The Respect for Marriage Act, which was passed with bipartisan support under the Biden-Harris administration in 2022, codified marriage equality as the law of the land. If Obergefell v. Hodges is overturned, the law, which does not require states to issue marriage licenses to LGBTQ+ people, would only recognize states to recognize unions performed by those that do, as well as unions that were performed in the past. Without state laws enshrining marriage equality as a right, Pennsylvania might not be required to issue marriage licenses to LGBTQ+ people in the future. That's the News Blast at this hour. If you're watching our news videos on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and let us know what you think of the new format. Up next, we have the Meadville area weather forecast here on PEP Radio.